Good evening, everybody. It's Dr. Brown here, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to watch this video where we're going to talk about returning to school for, I should say, re-returning to school right now for students in grades UPK to 8. I know you've probably seen things on the news about this, and you're probably asking yourself, the school is saying that they're going to be returning my child because they're in a grade either UPK through 8, and I want to know some more specifics. So what I'm going to try to do today in the time that we have is actually present some information to you so that you've got a good idea of what Marcus Whitman's going to be doing. I want to show you some data that's out there in a way that you can do some tracking for yourself so that you can see what might be happening at grades 9 through 12 to get them back. And then also we started a frequently asked questions based on what your feedback has been to us so far. And we're going to start to answer those just like we did when we returned to school the first time. So I'm going to share my screen briefly here. And if you had watched earlier, I apologize because we had a technical difficulty and you were probably all into it because this is such an awesome presentation and then all of a sudden it stopped working. So I apologize for that. This one's going to work. Gosh darn it. So here's what we're going to talk about. It's the state health department telling us that we're allowed to go from 6 feet of physical distance to 3 feet of physical distance. That came out last Friday at 5 p.m. And when we received the information, we began to go through it and see how it impacts Marcus Whitman and our different grade levels and everything else. And what we learned are a few things. We learned that we have to develop a plan, that the plan has to be uploaded to the state, but that the state is not going to look at it. We learned that. We also learned that we had to create a plan that was done with the knowledge and understanding of our local departments of health. We're in the process of doing that right now. We also understood from the language that we were given that we had to hold some public comment periods. And if you have been reading my emails, you know that comment or hearing period opened on Sunday during the afternoon, and it's going to close tomorrow. And everything that we're doing in between, this is all part of our hearing to get feedback from people and emails and phone calls and whatever else to try to make sure that people are as comfortable as possible with the information that we have available. So my job today in the time that we have is to talk about the specific safety requirements of going from 6 feet to 3 feet, and then also talk about the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and what guidance they're giving, which is actually, and the guidance that they're giving specifically that's impacting our 9 through 12 to not be able to return to school 5 days a week yet. And then again, I promised you the frequently asked questions. I should mention that one of the pieces that the state also came out with is that the ability to reopen and to what levels has to do with each individual community's tolerance of risk. And I'm not going to present anything to you that I wouldn't expose my own children to. So I want you to feel comfortable as possible with that. So the safety requirements for the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control always looks at what they call a 7-day rolling average of COVID cases by county. And I'm going to take you to a website, and I'm going to send this to you in an email as well, so you've got it and you can track things on your own. But this is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This is their COVID data tracker. And what you're able to do is you can find out about your community. So we can select by state. We can go down to New York. We can select our county. I think what we'll do is we'll start with Ontario County. As you know, our school district is in 2 different counties. It's going to pull up the most recent information about our county. And what you can see is the level of community transmission in Ontario County right now is considered to be high. You see where that's in the red. If we scroll down more on this, this will give us the actual numbers to be able to see where they're getting that from. The first box that gives you are the percent of people who are vaccinated. You can see that in Ontario County, 29.9% of residents in Ontario County are vaccinated, okay? We're gonna scroll down a little bit further because this is what we have to concern ourselves with. They're looking for a 7-day moving average in order for them to be out of the high zone, so in order for the county to be out of the high and into either substantial or moderate, what has to happen is, this number here, the 7-day totals, cases where it says 254 right now, in order for that to change to either substantial or even lower, that number has to be under 100. So let me say that again, that 254 number that you're seeing right there of a 7-day moving average has to be under 100 in order for the CDC to make a change in the risk level from high to substantial or moderate or low. So what does that mean to us? Well, yesterday, this number of 254 was actually 221. So it's gone up pretty significantly in the past 24 hours. When it comes to students in UPK to 5, this designation of high, actually any of these designations aren't concerning to the Centers for Disease Control, and therefore weren't concerning to the state health department and so on, because they felt that the transmission level of COVID is so low among our younger people that it's okay to return them to school at 3 feet, no matter what the transmission level is in the county. And what that means for us is we were able to put an immediate plan together and kind of make things happen. Now, what this also means, so let's take the middle school. We weren't able to announce the middle school at first because any students that are in grades really 7 through 12 is considered to be junior, senior high school. We have we have a 6 through 8 and a 9 through 12. With the cases that are at 254, and again, saying that they needed to be below 100, we still can bring students back at those higher grade levels, but we can only do that if we're able to cohort those students. Our high school right now, we can't cohort because each child has a different schedule based on the number of electives and what kinds of electives they take and that kind of thing. The middle school doesn't have that same type of schedule, so the middle school has been cohorting this entire time. And when they bring all the students back, they're just going to be creating a new cohort with their blue and gold groups together, which is going to be able to allow them to come back, even though we're at a level of high risk. So the one thing I wanted to bring to your attention, and the one thing that I'm trying to advocate for under the CDC, is I mentioned before that we're part of 2 different counties, Ontario and Yates. We did some data checking of our students, and for students in grades 6 through 12, about 63.55% of our students actually reside in Ontario, and the rest reside in Yates County. So let's go take a look. Let's go take a look at Yates County really quick. Yates County, and we'll pull up that information. And we'll see that Yates is also considered to be in the high zone. And we'll scroll down here, but their 7-day totals, their cases are 27 as opposed to 250 something. So what I've asked the health departments is, why can't Marcus Whitman use what I would consider a weighted average of the 60 something percent of students that live in Ontario versus the 30 something percent that live in Yates, see what that number is in a 7-day rolling average, and see if it's below 100. And if it is, why can't we begin to bring high school students back to school 5 days per week as well? I presented that information yesterday to the county, and well, they haven't gotten back to me yet, but they also said that they wanted to have a meeting about it with a bunch of people before they could get back to me with their opinion on that. So I'm kind of waiting to see what happens, but as of right now, that's exactly why we can't bring 9 through 12 back to school, because the regulations don't allow it because of those cases per 100,000 on the 7-day rolling average. But again, I'm trying to show the counties the math of it based on where our students live, to see if they can make an exception or a change for Whitman, and I'll keep you posted on that. So for right now, we have students in grades UPK to 8 that are going to be returning. They're going to be returning starting next week, starting the 19th. Your individual building principal, if you have a child at Gorman or if you have a child at the middle school, either Mr. Pasho or Dr. Cole is going to be reaching out to you with some of those, on the ground, boots on the ground specifics of the whole thing. So let's talk about Gorham a little bit. And before I do that, why am I not talking about Valley? Because Valley's already been back to school 5 days a week since this whole thing began. So it really isn't a Valley UPK-2 issue. It's more a 3 through 8 issue. So what we have here for Gorham is on April 22nd will be when all the students in grades 3, 4, 5 will be back to school. One of the big questions that I get, and I'll talk to you about it in a few, we did reach out to every parent whose child is learning in a fully remote model about a month ago to see if we were able to bring people back to school. Do you want your child to come back to school or not? Almost all of the people who have their children fully remote want to stay fully remote. And what we've asked is that they stay fully remote for the remainder of the school year because it's just going to be easier for us logistically with everything having to change. The distancing for students at Gorham, and again, wearing masks at all times, everybody wearing masks at all times, will be 3 feet in classrooms, but 6 feet everywhere else. There was a change. We can have physical education now at 6 feet instead of the 12 feet that it was this whole school year, as well as anything that we do in music now is a good thing. But 6 feet every place else besides the classrooms, which will be 3 feet. Transportation was another kind of frequently asked question. How are we going to figure out transportation? And in the guidance document, it says to try to keep students physically, we should keep students physically distanced as much as possible. And we should be asking parents to drive their kids to school, and we should be asking students to walk. Well, there's a couple of problems there. One of them is we're in a very, very large geographic school district. I'm not going to ask a child living in Middlesex to walk to the middle school, for example. Not going to happen. And also, we have parents who don't have vehicles. We have parents who are working and are not able to drive their kids to school for a variety of reasons. So it doesn't really work here. Where that might work better, downstate, where school districts are 1 or 2 square miles as opposed to 154 like us, that's where driving your kid to school or having a kid walk might work. It's not going to work here. And I demonstrated that point to the Department of Health, and they agreed. And so what we kind of resolved was I promised that what we would do when we're looking at busing is we're going to be looking at distancing our students as a first priority on the bus. And then a second priority is going to be placing students 2 to a seat if we have to. There'll be some situations where we don't. There'll be some situations where we might. The language says should whenever possible. We will whenever possible, but there will be some times where kids will be sitting together. Of course, they're going to have masks on at all times. And then lastly, the cohorts that our Gorham students have been in will be combined, so that everybody's together when we're at school, and they're kind of creating a new cohort. So the reopening for the middle school, those changes are also going to start the week of April 19th. We feel right this second, as we sit today on Tuesday, that every student is going to return for face-to-face instruction on April 19th. If there's any change to that, Dr. Cole is going to reach out. But right now, we met at length today about figuring out everything, because lunches is usually the biggest issue. And for Gorham in the middle school, having students eat 6 feet apart, we had to make sure that we had the space and the supervision for that. We will, and that's going to work out. So if you're in the middle school and maybe you were on the blue team and then your friend of yours is on the gold team, but you both have the same teacher in 7th grade, you're going to be coming together in a new cohort. Again, the students who are fully remote, they can stay fully remote. They can also come back to school, but we can't have the hopping back and forth. So it's a choice that parents have made for their children. The distancing will remain the same, and the transportation piece will remain the same, as I said, for Gorham. Okay. Frequently asked questions. We'll put this on our website, and we'll start to grow it. The first one that I get is, my child is currently attending fully virtually. Can that continue? The answer is yes, and that commitment to remain virtual is going to carry through the end of the school year. Secondly, will there be more students on school buses? Yes, I mean, there has to be. And the thing is, school buses they can't be 200 feet long, so we aren't able to distance every single person. We're going to do it to the best of our ability. Everybody on the bus will be masked at all times. The thing that I'm excited about is, I mentioned to you in the fall, I was hoping to have that the bus arrival app for your Chromebook or for your smartphone, where you can pull it up and see how far the bus is from your stop. And we're doing some training right now. We're reaching out to some parents for a pilot program to have them try it out to make sure that it works, and then we're going to roll it out. So it's one of those COVID delays, I'll call it. We had hoped to get it out in the fall, but the company that provides the GPS for the buses, as well as the technology, A, couldn't get a hold of the stuff, and B, when they did, they didn't have the workforce available to be able to get everything installed like they wanted to. But we're going to get it nonetheless, and that's coming. I think it's going to be helpful. It's going to be helpful for a couple of reasons. One, you're going to know when the bus is coming and going. Number two, if we do end up with a case of COVID and we have to do some contact tracing, we're going to know exactly how long a child was on the bus, what seat they sat in, and all of that. So I think that'll be pretty helpful, I think, moving forward. We have to come up with a gigantic reopening document like we did the first time. Again, the state was very clear and put it in writing that they're not going to read it, but that we have to upload it anyway. So we're working on that right now. But I think as parents, and I know as a superintendent, I'm more interested in those one pagers that, give me the facts of what's going to happen with my kid from the time they leave the house to the time they come home. And right now, Mr. Pasho and Dr. Cole are going to be reaching out to parents and students, for that matter, to talk to them about the things that they absolutely have to know. But we will have that reopening plan, the big 60-page document, hopefully uploaded this week. We'll continue to do the frequently asked questions, and I will continue to get information out. As I always have, if you do have building specific information or questions, I should say, please contact the principal first, because if you call me about it, I'm probably going to call the principal and either have the principal call you, or I'm going to call you back after I talk to the principal. Don't mind doing that, but I think you're going to get the information quicker if you go right through the principal. Okay. As I've always said, we're in this together. I think as far as COVID goes and making it through, we're rocking it. The big push for me to do this is to continue to focus on the mental health and well-being of our students, and also to start, closing some of those academic gaps that have happened due to the pandemic, and also to allow moms and dads to get to work. Those are some priority things for us. Over the course of the rest of the year and into the summer, we're going to have a lot of programming available for students, both in the area of mental health and wellness and in academics. So stay tuned for that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. Thanks for taking the opportunity to watch this. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, let me know, but we're ready to rock and roll next week. And I'll reach out again as needed to let you know if anything changes about the high school, and also to kind of check in with you and let you know how things are going at Gorham and the middle school once we start getting kids back. Okay.